A very good evening and warm welcome to the NDLI Club's 15th global event. I'm Dr. Vignesh and I'm part of the National Digital Library of India team. As you are aware, the National Digital Library of India hosts over 8 crore knowledge resources in almost all domains of education and research in over 100 learning resource formats like ebook, article, thesis, dissertation, etc. And in order to promote the culture of reading, especially among the young generation, NDLI has been encouraging to set up NDLI clubs in various educational institutions across the country. And today, we have over 2,804 NDLI clubs that are operational. As I said, this is the 15th in the series of global events that the NDLI has been organizing. And today, we are very honored to recognize one of the finest and topmost resource students of the country, Dr. Ajay Kumar, I.A.S, who is currently the Secretary of Department of Government of India. I had the privilege of working under his direct leadership on this national digital literacy mission. And I remember on so many occasions, we used to send documents for his review late in the evening. And on the very next day morning at around 6 a.m., we used to get his feedbacks on the entire document. And he's very meticulous, to the point, clear in the ear, down to earth, sincere, and most honest. And we are going to listen from our chief guest on this very important topic of impact of technology on the conduct of warfare. And we are very pleased to have you with us. Now, I would like to invite Professor Partha Pratim Chakrabarti, who is the key backbone of the National Digital Library of India, to formally welcome our chief guest and the participants. Over to Professor Chakrabarti.
It is my utmost pleasure to welcome Dr. Ajay Kumar, whom I have known for many years, especially when he was in the MeitY, where he made some landmark moves for which India is benefiting even today, before he went to the defense to restructure and resurrect the defense services. As Dr. Vignesh mentioned, he is a retired officer of 1985. Vignesh, I think there is a echo coming from your side. And he is presently heading the Department of Defense in the Government of India since 2019. Dr. Ajay Kumar completed his BTech in Electrical Engineering from IIT Kanpur, which was probably the most difficult to get during his times, especially in electrical engineering and computer science. And he is now a distinguished alumnus of the institute. He subsequently completed his MS in Applied Economics from the University of Minnesota and a PhD in Business Administration from the Carlson School of Management, University of Minnesota. He served in the state government of Kerala in early years in the Ministry of Communication and IT as Director General, National Informatics Center, and had an additional secretary in the Department of Electronics and Information Technology. That is when I personally interacted with him a lot and saw him drive some of the major missions for which MeitY has become very, very famous now. Prior to assuming his current appointment, he served in the Ministry of Defense as Secretary, Department of Defense Production from December 2017 to 19. And those who are following his Facebook page and others will see how effectively and efficiently things move and how we are moving ahead. He has to his credit several publications in national and international journals. He was awarded the Silver Elephant Medallion by National Scouts and Guides in 1994. He also earned the citation from the Honorable Prime Minister for the Outstanding Young Person from the Junior Chamber of Kerala. He was adjudged Electronics Leader of the Year in 2012 for promotion of electronics industry in the country, and the Technovation Sarabhai Award of IESA in 2015 for his outstanding contribution to the ESDM industry and its ecosystem. And outcomes of all that you see in the announcement of the government very recently on the semiconductor manufacturing. I remember how he was very passionate about trying to move this in a systematic manner. He was awarded the Champion of Change Award by CMA in 2017. And as I mentioned, the very prestigious Distinguished Alumnus Award of IIT Kanpur. Without wasting much ado, it is again my pleasure to welcome such a distinguished speaker onto this global platform of NDLI clubs, and I request Dr. Ajay Kumar to deliver his distinguished lecture.
Uh, Thank you very much, Professor Partha Chakrabarti and Dr. Vignesh, and distinguished guests of the National Digital Library of India Club. I will be talking on the impact of technology on the conduct of warfare. And I would first of all like to thank the NDLI Club for having given me this opportunity to share my thoughts with a distinguished audience. In the defense arena, various technologies are known to have played a significant role. An example of how new technologies influence warfighting in the development of strategic bombing concepts during World War II will illustrate this. Initially, airplanes were conceived for military purposes, for observation and movement of enemy ground troops. In the early 20th century, the idea that an airplane could carry and drop bombs was tested and deployed in the later years of World War I. And these were tactical improvements to the fighting capability. However, a third technology, the Norden bomb sight, came along, allowing for strategic targeting of adversaries' capabilities in industrial institutions and to various other vulnerable points. This led to a new military strategy as a much more precise and devastating use of daylight bombing on manufacturing capability was developed by the light forces during World War II. Now, under what is being termed as a third offset in field of military technology, the revolution in military affairs is proceeding to a new stage. The first offset technology products were built through the post World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War, and the Cold War period. The second offset technology systems were influenced by breakthroughs in information and communication technologies and precision guided weapon systems and platforms. Their application manifested during the Gulf War. Military applications of emerging technologies from the third offset cutting edge science and technologies now include robotics, autonomous unmanned systems, hypersonics, new undersea systems, artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, electronic warfare, stealth metamaterials, information and data analytics, cognitive neurosciences, quantum technology, additive manufacturing, energy-based propulsion, directed energy weapon systems, and cyber capabilities. Most leading countries in the world are pursuing military innovations driven by these advances and integrating them into an intelligent military system. Let me now talk about some of the important technologies which are already making changes in the military strategy paradigm. These include autonomous weapons, low cost persistent satellite based sensing technologies, cybersecurity threats, artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data, cloud computing, and robotics, 3D printing, blockchain, information warfare, among others. The important point is that the level of technology dictates the strategies used to provide war fighting capability of a country. The future wars have changed characteristics based on new capabilities which the new technologies enable. Some of the new capabilities which these new technologies enable include prolonged posturing with swift and intense interactions. In the evolving world order marked by persistent competition, crisis, and conflict between near peer adversaries, the militaries are required to be in operational readiness for prolonged duration and to deter, dissuade, and or to compel in pursuance of the political military strategic objectives. The transition to combat action, when it happens, is swift and intense. Therefore, the future weapons have to be highly lethal and accurate, and which would drastically speed up the operation tempo, and results at the tactical level would be seen almost immediately. Second, new capability which is emerging as a result of use of new technologies in warfare relate to persistent surveillance and network centricness. With highly networked systems and advancement in space and cyberspace domains, surveillance is becoming continuous, and complete battle space transparency is becoming as much a reality for you as well as for the adversary. Another prominent feature of new technology is the use of algorithm driven, autonomous, or manned unmanned teaming. With the advancement in the disruptive technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, almost all weapon systems today are becoming unmanned and have autonomous capabilities of some form or the other. Drones and RPA are becoming important actors in the battle space alongside humans and manned weapon systems. These new unmanned actors are algorithm driven and necessitate manned or unmanned teaming in the future of war fighting. Another change that we see as an impact of technology on modern warfare is non contact or standoff engagement. Fighting extended range weapons is becoming an essential component in future armed conflicts. Like mentioned earlier, there is preponderance of drones with increased capabilities to deal with adversary, which is remote and using robotics and other means of remote engagements. Linked to this is the issue of non-kinetic targeting and equipment neutralization. This is now being used as part of cyber warfare and electronic warfare. And such non-kinetic targeting is having far-reaching and widespread implications in future war fighting, where the adversary can be neutralized without any bloodshed. Another important aspect of future modern technology is multi-domain technological subversive operations. In future multi-domain warfare, an effect in one domain produces a decisive effect in other domains across air, land, sea, space, cyber, or electromagnetic spectrum. Thus, these operations could precede commencement of actual combat action through subversive means to add deniability for environment shaping or as a means of compellence. It is clear that new technologies are necessitating modifications in the combat plans. These technologies will make traditional numerical force projection redundant across land, air, and sea, and bring in a new era of warfare where long distance human-less force projection is feasible through robots, drones, swarms, space-based weapon systems, and virtual war in the cyber world. Future battle space is likely to see command being exercised across dispersed and decentralized formations, leveraging disruptive technologies even at small unit level, all at an accelerated speed of war. Consequently, these new technologies have large-scale ramifications from equipment inventory to manpower planning to training. In a broader sense, new technologies will define new defense doctrines for all states and nations. Historically, and I would like to mention this aspect uh, as a very important change that we are witnessing with respect to new technologies. Historically, it has been observed that various technological innovations originate in defense arena and subsequently make inroads in the civilian domains. However, this is changing now. Increasingly, we are finding that commercially accessible technology advancements are ahead of military technology. As a result, these technology advancements can be adapted for military use to advance disruptive objectives. Off the shelf available drones have been weaponized by ISIS and used as potent hybrid threat, just to mention as an example. From the perspective of our own adoption, we need to see that how we are going to adapt ourselves to the fast changing pace of new technologies. How new technologies which are product of commercial development and which are driven by private sector can be integrated for our armed forces. This may also require amendment in our defense design, development, and procurement procedures. Similarly, the innovation cycle of many of these technologies is much faster than our traditional programs and life cycles. We need to review how to keep pace with the fast changing pace of new technologies. New systems will also demand new organizational structures, enhanced technical threshold for human resources, absorption of intelligent robots, machines, drones as distinct resources in the overall structure, including their command and control, provisioning, repair, and upgrade, has to be factored in. Soldiers will need to be trained to use these autonomous and intelligent devices, so also to exploit these systems and applications. Also, I would like to mention that given that many of these new technologies are developed in commercial world, there is this danger of these technologies falling into non-state actors. Effective regulation of these technologies is difficult owing to the very nature and inherent dual use capabilities, and suitable frameworks need to be developed with respect to how we are going to deal with these emerging challenges and requirements. Let me now talk about specifically what has been done in India to prepare ourselves for the modern warfare. New technologies in warfare provide a great opportunity for India to leapfrog the gap in defense technologies. Since a number of new technologies which I mentioned are inherently digital in nature, this provides great opportunity for India to leverage the leadership in digital technology industry and cater to the needs of the armed forces. IDEX has shown how our startups and academic institutions are adapt to these new technologies and can mature quickly to convert commercial technologies to military applications. Some of the new applications which have been, with some of the new initiatives which have been started by government in this regard are worth mentioning. Government has taken a determined decision to develop the new technology defense ecosystem in the country as part of its Atmanirbhar Bharat in defense campaign. In this direction, it has been decided that clear priority will be given to Indian defense industry, and import would be refrained from as far as possible. As a consequence of this, earmarking of defense budget has been made for domestic defense industry. This earmarking was 58% 2 years back. This year it was 64%, and next year it is 68%, which is clearly a progressive step of increasing dependence on our defense industry. The government has also notified 209 items in what is called as a positive indigenization list of defense equipment, which shall not be imported as per the timelines indicated in that list. Similarly, the defense PSUs have notified a list of 2,851 subsystems, LRUs, components, which they shall not be importing and will be indigenizing. These lists are a clear signal of government's determination of developing new technologies within the country with the help of industry, startups, and academia. In fact, these lists are not end in themselves, as more items are proposed to be promulgated in the same list. Another major step that government has been pushing for as part of its efforts to develop the ecosystem for new defense technologies has been promotion of private industry and startups in this sector. For the first time, budget within the domestic procurement budget has been earmarked for private industry, thereby giving them an assurance that they will be, if investment is made by private sector in this area, there will be government procurement to support them. In addition to channelizing domestic budget towards domestic industry in defense, government has also been aggressively promoting defense exports. As a result of these initiatives, the defense exports is shown nearly 700% growth in the last 4 years. Given the fact that defense industry's sustainability cannot be linked only to domestic procurement, such promotion of defense export is something which is essential for the long term sustainability and continuous upgradation of the defense industry. Several measures to speed up defense export, including liberalizing of procedures and hand-holding, are being provided in this regard. Another landmark decision which has been announced in the budget last few days back has been opening up of defense R&D to private industry, startups and academia. This is a historic decision wherein defense R&D, which was so far only within the public sector and DRDO, is now going to be also be done through through industry and startups and academia. Not only that, the government has decided that the sector will be opened up. Government has also decided that 25% of defense R&D budget will be earmarked for such ventures which will be taken up after the opening up of this sector. This is going to create today the energy of all these people, including industry, startups, and academia, can be leveraged to actually promote new technologies in the country. Another important step that has been taken has been, which has been a long-standing demand from the industry, is to speed up the acquisition process within the government in the defense sector. On an average, the capital procurement time for any armament in the country used to be 6 years, 5.5 to 6 years in the past. Obviously, in new world, fast-paced changing technology environment, such time frame are totally unacceptable. Several procedural streamlining has been done to reduce this time for acquisition, and now for all acquisitions, efforts are made to complete the acquisition process within 2 years. In addition, efforts are also being made to streamline trial and testing procedures and certification. An important decision which has been again been made in the budget speech 3 days back, that trial testing and certification systems and procedures will be regulated by an autonomous independent mechanism which will be set up by the government. This mechanism will in itself provide a level playing field to all players in this sector so that they can contribute to the development of new technologies. Lastly, before concluding, I would like to mention that one of the important initiative that is going to be launched very shortly is with respect to developing electronic chips. We talked about modern technologies and digital technologies, but we are also aware that we do not have chips which are created based on Indian designed microprocessor. And very shortly, Defense Ministry is going to come out with an RFP which will enable industry to provide a system of chips for based on Indian microprocessor, which will develop capability in the industry for a totally trusted electronic device ecosystem. Let me conclude by saying that the modern warfare, as we are already witnessing in different parts of the world, is fast changing in view of the new technologies and their impact. And in India, we are cognizant of it, and we are already taking steps to make sure that this requirement of new technologies is fully met for our armed forces, so that our defense capabilities are absolutely state of the art. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, sir, for this amazing and to the point presentation. So we have time for a few question and answers from the participants. Uh, before the questions from the participants, I have a question that has already come in from one of the participants. What are your views on the biowar?
So, we have to be prepared for any eventuality in as far as defense of our country, because we cannot rule out that an adversary may use means which are not acceptable as per international norms, and we have to be prepared to defend ourselves against any such attempt.
There is a question from Mr. Sagar. What are the advantages and disadvantages of technology in today's era?
Technology is, it adds to human convenience, quality of life, life expectancy. It improves, uh, today, because of technology, we do see that people, even common people, are living with comforts which in earlier days only the most well off and could only afford. So it overall improves the quality of life. The downside of technology, or something which we should be cautious about, is that there should be no technology divide, or as we often call digital divide. We have to make sure that all segments of the society participate in such kind of technology drive. And in this regard, I mean, it's heartening to see how technology has been a great enabler, the way it has been used, whether we look at opening up of bank accounts using technology, creating digital identity for all the people in the country, so that they are able to actually access a large number of services and facilities which were otherwise uh, inaccessible for them, and the dignity of being able to prove their identity for any activity which they were required to do is itself is a great enablers. So I think technology is a tool. It all depends on how you use it. If you use it the right way, it has great advantages. If you don't use it the right way, it may have its adverse consequences.
Sure, sir. So the next question is from Mr. Subrata Haldar. His question is, what are your views on using AI, artificial intelligence, in the modern warfare?
Then this is inevitable. It's already happening. A whole lot of unmanned systems that we see today already being deployed are actually based on AI. You must be reading in newspapers how drones are today being used in all parts of the world. Recently, you saw some UAE being attacked by drones. Earlier in the Armenia Azerbaijan war, you saw the use of drones. So I think AI is being used in all aspects of modern warfare, whether it is platforms, whether it is management, logistics, whether it is human resource. And the fact of the matter is, AI is actually not only in warfare, it is actually percolating to all walks of life. And just to quote Mr. Vladimir Putin, president of Russia, who said that the country who leads in AI will rule the world in the 21st century. So that is how important it is.
So there is a specific question from one of the participants. How relevant is aeronautical engineering in the defense sector? So this is from one of the students of college.
Extremely important because one of the important domains which defined modern warfare in the 20th century was air force, and because it enabled capabilities which were beyond land and sea, and therefore a whole lot of air based systems came up. Today, in the 21st century, apart from air based systems, especially the unmanned aerial vehicles, also is what is becoming very, very prominent are space based systems. And in today, we are seeing, 24 by 7 surveillance and monitoring systems from space. We are seeing capabilities which were not possible earlier through air-based systems through space. So we will continue to see increased importance of space-based systems, and both from space systems and aeronautical systems, we will for air force or air-based systems, we will continue to have importance of aeronautical engineering. Apart from that, of course, aeronautical engineering is equally important from civil aviation perspective, and therefore it is interesting to see that how aeronautics, the line between the civil aeronautical space and defense gets blurred very easily. And therefore, all major industries in aeronautics in the world, whether it is Dassault, whether it is Boeing, whether it is Lockheed, are invariably playing in both civil and defense area. So, yes, aeronautics is extremely important for defense, but it's also an area where you are in a dual use space, and you will be working both for civil and defense area.
The next question is from Mr. Akash. His question is, can you please say the importance of control systems in the warfare?
Yeah, so as we are moving to more and more digital warfare, control systems are automatically becoming more important. Today, electronic warfare is determining how people are trying to dominate the electromagnetic spectrum. Electronic warfare is determining how do you the fire control systems on any platform are today based on control systems of that suitable to that particular platform, whether you are in a ship, whether you are in an aeroplane, whether you are in a tank. It is all the systems that are functioning are based on the control systems which are customized for that platform. So today, I think it is like, say, it's as important as the platform cannot exist without the control systems, actually. So it's that important.
Sure, sir. So the next question is from Mr. Ram Krishna. What about the technology of Brahmos missile and how India developed their air force?
I am not, so technology for Brahmos is very special, very advanced, and it's one of the best missiles in its class across the world. It may not be appropriate for me to discuss specifics in this regard, and therefore I would like to just say that we can be proud of the fact that we are making this missile in India and now exporting as well. Uh, as regard as how did we develop our air force, I think that's a like I said, with the evolution of warfare, air-based warfare became a necessity, and therefore we decided to set up our air force, and today we have one of the best air forces in the world.
Sure, sir.
And also very proudly, we have our own fighter jets, we have our own fighter helicopters, we have our own transport aircraft. So we have significant capability both in the aeronautics and in the fighting capability.
Sure, sir. Sir, you mentioned about a lot of startups and R&D taking place in India, and you have been there are a lot of budget allocations for this initiative. And since most of our audience are young generation, they are in their final years of doing their engineering or ITI diploma. What are some of the career aspects that they can pursue in the defense technology domain that will help them in shaping up their career for the future, sir?
So, I always believe that there is a time in the life cycle of any sector uh, when it peaks and then it goes to a low. Right now, for defense and aerospace, this sector is really seeing a huge uptide, and therefore there is large number of opportunities for our youngsters. One of you spoke about startups, and let me just touch about how the startup ecosystem is booming. Traditionally, there was a feeling that defense is a formidable sector, difficult for small players to get into, and startups cannot survive in this defense sector. They're fine for more civil commercial kind of applications. In 2018, we launched IDEX program where we started connecting startups with the defense requirements, and we posed real defense challenges to the startups. First time in late 2018, and lo and behold, there was such tremendous interest and capability which was demonstrated. If I were to just give you an example, we wanted to make 100 megapixel camera. This was being imported from Israel earlier, and for several crores. A startup in IIT Delhi made this. We provide them assistance of 1.5 crore, and in about 12 months' time, they came up with a 100 megapixel camera at one fraction of the cost at which it was being imported. And they told us that we can make 1 gigapixel camera in 2 years, which is something which no only US had at this point of time. We have seen in the last 3 years after the launch of this program, over 1,000 startups are today connected with defense. What it has done is it has leveraged our ability to solve many more problems as against only having a few labs, government labs, which were able to deal with only a handful of problems. But more than the number of problems, what it has done is what used to take hundreds of crores is today getting developed in few crores. What used to take 8 to 10 years is getting, we're finding results in 12 to 18 months. This is something which has been amazing. Let me also share with you, some of you must have seen the beating retreat this year and the drone show, 1,000 drone shows, which was done by a startup which we mentored. Till 3 months back, this startup was able to do 100 drones, swarm of 100 drones. And we gave them the challenge that we need at least 1,000 drones to perform. In 3 to 4 months' time, look at what they have done. Till now, if any drone show which has happened, swarm show which has happened in this country was from a Russian company. And we have today become, apart from Russia, China, and US, the fourth country in the world which has capability to do 1,000 drones. We have seen in the last 3 years that startups have ramped up. They have raised money. Their valuations have crossed hundreds of crores. And I am quite confident that we are seeing today a flood of unicorns happening. It is only a matter of time and not a very long time when you will hear about a defense unicorn in India. Something which Brit companies have not been able to do for 20 or 30 years since they have come into the sector. We are seeing defense startups today, the so called very small companies who could not have survived in the defense space are today going to become unicorns, and that is a huge area of potential for those who are so inclined. And like I said, we have taken a decision to depend on domestic industry, domestic startups. And given the size of our own requirements, given the fact that we have opened up defense export and are aggressively promoting our companies to go abroad and sell, I think the sky is not the limit.
Sure, sir. So one last question. So this question is from another specific question. So I think this person, Shayan Devnath, is pursuing his civil engineering. And what are his, for people who are pursuing civil engineering, what are their career prospects in defense research or warfare development?
You know, so that's a very good question, and I want to make a little bit more generic answer. See, one of the good things about defense is that while I spoke a lot about digital technologies, which is, of course, today in warfare becoming very important, defense is requirement spans across all sectors. You mentioned civil engineering. I'll talk about that, but uh, whether it is textiles, whether it is mechanical, whether it is civil, whether it is materials, there is no, you spoke about bio warfare earlier, so there is nothing that is not a requirement for defense. The most important part in any of defense requirements, whichever sector we go, the requirements are a little bit more stringent than what would be good enough for the civil commercial world. And to that extent, we have to be a little bit more prepared to be a little bit more rigorous and toughened up. On civil engineering side, I'm sure some of you must have heard about Rohtang Tunnel, Atal Tunnel Rohtang, uh, which is the world's longest tunnel above 10,000 feet, which was built by our civil engineers. We are proud of this fact that India has the world's. We built the highest road in the world at Urmingla Pass, which is over 19,000 feet. So one of the things, for example, is civil construction at difficult locations. We have also built roads and bridges in the remotest islands in the world, in the remotest airstrips in the world. And this capability is being recognized not only in India, but in many other countries who do not have this kind of capability to do this. This is one example. Other example is when you have your troops located at minus 30 degrees, minus 40 degrees, the normal construction may not be applicable in these areas. And therefore, you need specialized construction for troops who are posted at these very difficult locations, to be like Siachen or DBO or Ladakh, etc. And you need specialized civil engineering skills. I can go on large number of applications where such requirements are there. But let me just also say that there are a whole lot of normal requirements of civil engineering as well, because not everything has to be specialized. And armed forces require large number of housing, barracks, troops, offices, factories, workshops, for which the normal civil engineering requirements, roads, etc., the normal usual work. There are 62 cans in the country which require the normal municipal kind of civil engineering work. So there are both the normal civil engineering work as in any other society, and additional specialized civil engineering work which defense requires. And as possibly some of you know, there is also a military engineering services, which is actually a dedicated central government service for civil engineers. wherein people come and pursue a career in this direction.
Thank you so much for responding to most of our questions, sir. We sincerely thank you for taking out time from your vicious schedule. Now I request Professor Partha Chakrabarti to sum up the session. Over to Professor Chakrabarti.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ajay Kumar. I was just wondering whether the script of this material would be very useful for any engineering student in any IIT or anywhere else to even make a list of interesting problems to solve. So, this provided a very, very nice gamut, and I'm sure that you could have spoken for hours together on this, and the time restricted us. I would really thank you for, taking out your time, especially now when all these sessions are going on in such difficult situations. I have only one question, which I would like your opinion on. That is, now with technology, information technology, and all the topics that you have said, how would the training of the armed forces change? Currently, the training of the armed forces, is it uh, so much focused on, because tomorrow's soldier on the ground and the infantry and others, I think they have to be trained in technology with all these things coming up. So, do you think that we should put our focus on that, and whether such programs should be there in the not only in specialized army institutions, but also in institutions of national repute in the country, like you have, diversified education to entrepreneurs. Similarly, would you think that this sort of education is important and should be scaled up?
Absolutely. I think we will continuously need to, for example, in AI, we have now started specialized training for our armed forces people. We have now created a defense cyber agency where people who are trained in modern cyber security and cyber warfare aspects are posted in this. We have a defense space agency, similarly, for people who are actually trained in the space area. But I don't think we are anywhere. We need to scale this up much more, because today it's not only the people who are in the cyber agency or space agency who need to understand these technologies. These technologies are becoming so pervasive and ubiquitous that some people will need to have different levels of skill sets. Those who would be users have to be familiar with the usage. Those who have to be at the strategy and tactical level need to understand the strategic and tactical capabilities of these technologies so that they can plan and devise suitable methodologies accordingly. And those who are in the development or actual maintenance of these technologies will need to have more advanced capabilities to be able to maintain or further upgrade these systems. So at different levels, everyone will have to be trained and exposed to the use of these new technologies to be able to leverage with them. And to that extent, as you have very rightly pointed out, we need to further upscale the level of training that is presently going on.
Thank you so much. And on a Friday evening, this was wonderful speaking to you. A large number of people are listening, and I'm sure that more and more people will listen. Many of your good friends and batchmates, like Dr. Sanjeev Chopra and all, are all listening for to your lecture. And thank you again on behalf of the National Digital Library of India, and we wish you many more successes for the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Namaskar.
Thank you so much.
Jai Hind.
Thank you.
Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, participants. I think there were a lot of questions about the certificate of participation. So for NDLI club registered members, you can log into your respective user account and then go to the event section, and you can first register for the session, and then you have to submit the feedback, and then you can generate your certificate automatically, right? So the session it will be open for an hour. So kindly first, if you have already registered, well and good. If you have not yet registered for the session, so kindly register yourself for the session, and then you can submit your feedback and download your certificate of participation after a day or two. Right. So with this, we thank you so much for joining us for this session. Thank you.